get the latest news with eNCA elections analyst Jan-Jan Jourbert, who joins me in studio. So, Jan-Jan, you have been doing calculations and projections all day. What for you has been the most fascinating development that you have seen today?
I think one of the most fascinating developments is about to unfold because we are ready to make another projection. Do not leave your seats. We are going to project another metro. We will not tell you which one, but don't leave your seats. It's going to be soon.
I feel I need a drum roll.
There you go.
Bum, bada, bum.
So
it was interesting. The projection around Johannesburg is fascinating in itself.
Indeed.
Action SA, what do you, I was speaking to Marie Harris about Herman Mashaba and the power of personality. She was saying a lot of it is to do with him being a well-known face because he's a former mayor of Johannesburg. But do you think his message is also resonating really well?
By all means, and not only that. He's not only a well-known face, he got things done, to coin a phrase. Anyone who uses the M2 to the south of the city knows who got that fixed on time within budget. So all this nonsense about him being such a terrible mayor, that has just exploded in the face of everybody making that accusation, and there have been many parties making that accusation. So interestingly, in Johannesburg, there's going to be a lot of horse trading and there's going to be a lot of coalition talk. I wonder what the chances are if Mr. Mashaba can stitch together a grouping of people willing to work with him, whether he might be in a kingmaker position and might even decide the crown.
I mean, he said he wants to become the mayor, that he's gunning for mayor, isn't he?
Well, the EFF doesn't have a problem with Mr. Mashaba. The Democratic Alliance, which has gone very quiet on Johannesburg, it speaks of everything else, sweeping and talking about winning this and that.
Well, there was a rather snippy comment from John Steenhuisen a little earlier where he said, when asked about Action SA's success so far in Johannesburg, he said, well, if we put all our resources into one city, we'd also be doing really well. But they're going to have to talk to each other, aren't they? Even though there was a falling out between Mashaba and the DA.
Yes, I think some humble pie might be served. I cannot for the life of me think that the people who voted for the Democratic Alliance would want the chance going begging of building a coalition or a cooperative governance agreement against the ANC. At the same time, I cannot quite see Mr. Mashaba working with the ANC either. So it's going to be a fascinating situation. Sally, this is what we are going to be doing tomorrow, is building these puzzles to get to the point where it's almost like Tetris, where someone needs to get to 50. But in the end, they don't. In Tshwane, the outgoing council was governed by Mr. Randall Williams, who we saw so angry in Centurion last night at that long queue. He is the outgoing mayor, might well become the new mayor, we'll see. But he doesn't have a majority. He didn't get to 50. He's got a minority government. That might also be in store for Johannesburg.
That could be interesting. Also interesting that the DA is saying quite clearly that in some councils, they would be happier to stay on the opposition benches rather than form a coalition that's unstable. Is that a sign of political maturity?
It might be maturity, it might be desperation, it might be simple expedience. For you to work with people, they also must want to work with you. And,
yes, a relationship's a two-way thing.
I don't want to call anyone's bluff here, but it's not quite as easy as it seems sometimes.
So I believe we actually can almost release our drum roll because you are ready to project for us this evening the capital city of Tshwane.
Yes, eNCA at this hour is ready to call the result for the city of Tshwane, the capital of the nation. And here it is. We expect the following result. African National Congress, 34%. Democratic Alliance, 33%. Economic Freedom Fighters, 10%. Freedom Front Plus, 8%. other parties the rest, and we will speak to that. But there are only so many pillars that you can fit into one picture. So that is the situation. You can see that much like Johannesburg, there is going to be a lot of horse trading going on. There's going to be a lot of coalition talks. I'll just repeat that result as we see it, and this is how we project it. It will change, but this is what we expect at this hour, and we are confident that we can call this. We have called the others, and we've called them correctly. So our system is working. ANC 34%, DA 33%, EFF 10%, Freedom Front 8%. I'm going to go a bit lower in the count. Action SA 7%.
Huh.
And then a gazillion small parties.
Okay.
Right.
Oh, yes.
So,
all of which will be very useful if you're because you're going to have to form a coalition one way or the other.
now, Sally, how was your math?
I'm very good at working out percentages because I love going to the sales. So I can work out 20% off in a second.
But can you work out 50% from this?
Of what?
There's a road
I'm
to
already
50%.
confused.
Let me save you the trouble.
So I would say you need to get to 50. So you could have the ANC and the EFF. That would bring you 44 plus a few other parties. You have to get to 51, don't you?
Yes, and there's a different way.
Before you do that, can we
Yes.
just reflect a moment on the 2016 results
Yes, sure.
in Tshwane? Because I think that'll give our viewers a really good understanding of how things have changed, because significant losses for the ANC and the DA.
Yes, by all means.
The ANC was at 41.5% in 2016, and you're projecting 34. The DA was on 43 plus something. You're saying 33. So big losses for both. And interestingly, you're projecting that the EFF is basically holding because they got 11% in 2016, and you're projecting about 10%. And they're holding as well in Johannesburg, which is fascinating.
Yes, but not growing, and that might be differential turnout. We spoke about that a lot, and we saw it on our screens. Those long queues in the suburbs. That puts the EFF at a disadvantage because their strength is not in the suburbs. It is in the townships and in the informal settlements. But those polling percentages were much lower. And that means that although they grew in those areas, they didn't grow overall because they do not have a diverse appeal.
I see. So we're talking about how to get to 51. So I'm seeing it already in your projection.
Aha.
Tell me if I'm getting there.
Okay. Try the other side.
The DA 33%.
Yes.
They could get together with the Freedom Front Plus.
Yes.
That takes them to 41.
Quite right.
Action SA 7, that takes them to 48. Then they need just 3 small parties to say yay.
Yeah, they only need 2. And if the ACDP gets a few anti-vax votes,
Oh, yes.
I think thereby hangs the tail. On the other hand, you're dealing with egos. Abel Tau, the mayoral candidate for Action SA in the city of Tshwane, had a terrible fallout, not like Mr. Mashaba, even worse, much more toxic with the DA. But I think such fences may well be able to be mended. If not, then yet again, Tshwane will have, I believe, a minority government, because I cannot quite see, and we'll discuss it tomorrow, but it's certainly not a given, certainly not, that the economic freedom fighters would want to work with the ANC. In my experience of the EFF, which is a long road that we have travelled together, the mission of the EFF to a very large degree is not to support the ANC, it is to oppose it.
Well, they're disruptors, and they actually very often point to issues that need to be pointed to.
Now, Sally, let's see what their policies say.
Yeah.
The EFF says it will only cooperate in a coalition with a political party if such political party accepts all of the 7 non-negotiable pillars of EFF policy. I cannot see that happening, so we might have them turning into a cooperative agreement, but not a coalition.
Here's the big question for you, Jan-Jan. So clearly we're heading for no clear majority. Lots of coalitions are going to have to be formed. We have seen disaster in Tshwane. Disaster. And, you know, it's been such a mess. Do you think that we are reaching a level of maturity in our politics to have stable coalitions, as we see across the world in other areas?
Well, a few things are needed for a stable coalition. The first is a good coalition agreement with an opt-out clause. When does the coalition no longer hold? Secondly, you need mature management of such coalitions. Thirdly, You need a cooperative and professional civil service within that municipality. And fourthly, you need a provincial government which puts the people before the party. Now, the last two have been very missing in Tshwane. And if those officials in Tshwane can start working for the people rather than the party, and the provincial government does the same, it might well change.
Yeah, and we saw that the MEC, the COGTA MEC, putting Tshwane under administration incorrectly, and of course that was overturned
illegally
in court, and that's the sort of thing we simply cannot have if we're going to move forward for the world, for the best of everyone who is wanting better service delivery and wants effective local government. Jan-Jan Jourbert, absolutely fascinating. Thank you so much for chatting to us this evening. That's eNCA election analyst Jan-Jan Jourbert giving us the projections for the city of Tshwane.